Jai Sri Krishna. And as I tell you about my life, I have already mentioned the foundation stone laid by by Ma Bridge Moiniji, and also the teachings of Swami Nirmal Chetan. But while I'm writing on the people who had an impact on my young lifetime, I must mention Professor Ram Panjwani. He was from Larkana in Sindh. He would often tell me stories from my native land and often mention with awe about his knowledge concerning the grandeur of my paternal family, the Kyanis. We owned a mansion in Hyderabad, Sindh. I saw the splendor of the house when I visited Sindh. And today the mansion has been converted into a hospital, so I am told. And after that, also I'm told that I'm not sure whether it still exists there. Dada Panjwani, as I used to affectionately call him, used to say, I would touch the house as I passed by and wonder what kind of people lived there. Well, he did not have long to wait to find out. He met my mother and me while we lived in Mumbai. As I have mentioned earlier, I was born in Hyderabad, Sindh, undivided India, which is now a part of Pakistan. In fact, it was here that flourished the great Indus Valley civilization, a marvel in social setup and communal living millennia before the birth of Christ. And I am proud to believe that I belong to that land. But I did return to my birthplace in Hyderabad, Sindh. I mean, of course, I was in Mumbai. That's where I grew up. But at a later stage, somehow we did manage to go back to Hyderabad, Sindh. But let me tell you the article that I wrote called My Trip to Sindh, A Journey to My Roots, which was published in various magazines. It was in the Femina. I know that it was translated into English, into Sindhi, and maybe various other magazines too. I know it was in the Amil Samachar as well. So here is my article. We finally made it to Hyderabad, Sindh, that is. My husband Narayan and myself finally left on a trip that would make us set foot on the very soil that we had left 39 years ago. When I told my Sindhi friends in Bombay that I was leaving for Pakistan, they showed a lot of interest. In fact, more interest than had I told them that I was going to London, New York, or Timbuktu for that matter. But why was I surprised at their reaction? After all, I was going back to the land of our birth, to the land and houses which we had left reluctantly with tears in our eyes, and to which we had been denied access for so many seasons. Though I was a little apprehensive about the trip, I was not really afraid. Oh, could have been because of my emotions, maybe memories, or it just could be a change of weather. It's raining in Mumbai now. So, to continue, I was going to Hyderabad, Sindh, and though I was a little apprehensive myself, I was not really afraid. After all, of whatever kind may have been the frenzy during partition, I had the confidence on the fact that we Sindhis, having drank from the same Indus Sindhu water for centuries prior to the sad separating event, they would welcome us with the age-old Sikha, which is the affection of the Sindhis. From Bombay, we first landed at Lahore, where the hotels are comparable to any other good five-star hotel elsewhere in the world. Whenever one goes out of India, one is mid strangers from a different land, so to speak. One looks different and talks a different tongue. While in Lahore, what struck me was that no one could tell that I was a foreigner there. We looked alike and spoke the same language. Then why? Why did we have to go through customs and immigrations at the airport like an outsider? I did feel sad. Amongst the elite, the ladies do not practice parda as a rule. They wear salwar kameezes made in the latest style. I'm talking of 1986. That is when I had gone to Hyderabad, Sindh, Pakistan. And you will also see a photograph in the beginning. I have shown all the photographs. You will see a photograph of my husband and me when we attended, and the building behind us is the Kimat building. There are some more images of the Kimat building. There are also some images of the Kyani mansion, which was really stupendous, and both were stupendous. And yes, so let me continue with the story. You've seen those photographs already. Amongst the elite, yeah, as I said, my charming Pakistani hostess took me around sightseeing and shopping, and she proudly presented me everywhere around as her Indian friend from Bombay. Her friends and the salespeople generally welcomed me warmly and even courteously gave me discounts on their goods. Amongst the common citizens of Pakistan whom I met, I felt that there was competition with India as far as economical progress or a game of cricket was concerned, which according was to me is healthy and natural of any set of neighbors. At a couple of parties that I attended and where my host learned that I enjoyed singing, they requested me not to sing a ghazal or a film song but a bhajan. Is it possible that they subconsciously miss the Hindus and their culture in their midst? I myself, having lived in Bombay in cosmopolitan surrounding almost all my life, did feel rather restricted being surrounded by only people from one religion. But from Lahore, we flew to Karachi, from where it was a mere 2 hour drive to my birthplace, Hyderabad in Sindh. It was unfamiliar seeing the Arabic Sindhi scripts strewn all over on hoardings and advertisements, and the milestone on the road. Though odd, the feeling was pleasant. Once we approached Hyderabad, I found my husband's voice getting more emotional. He remembered the roads as he was 9 years old when he had to leave his hometown. He instructed our friend who was driving to take us to a certain spot to stop, after which he wanted to find the way up to his old house himself. Amongst the chirping of the birds and the hustle bustle of rickshaws, motor cars and cycles did stand the Jhamat Malki Matra building. It stood majestically as though defiantly proclaiming that he would stand no matter what happened to the surroundings, and he would stand because it had been built with love. I entered my sasural, that is my in law's house, like for the first time. I had always felt that my elders had exaggerated in their account for the grandeur that we had left behind, but I was wrong. The house was magnificent. It was well maintained and is presently occupied by a doctor and his family. Well, I'm talking of 1986 when I had visited. Even though the present owners were out of town the servants, at the instance of a marble cutter who had known the family and who had lived down the stairs since 1935, opened the door to us. I visited Mulchan Mahal, which is really the place where I was built. The Kyani mansion was a family house, and we were a joint family, the whole Kyani family. So I visited the place of my birth, the Mulchan Mahal, which was very beautiful also. There people came from the neighborhood proclaiming that they had heard about the Asli Maliks, which is the original owners being the Kyanis. I was born a Kyani. I'm sure you have guessed that by now. And they insisted on our visiting their house to have papad and water at least. My birth house was as lovely as I had heard it to be and is still well maintained. The Mehman Nawazi for which Sindh is famous still exists today, and I observe that the Sindhis strive to stand apart from their Pakistani counterparts by wearing a typically quaintly embroidered cap. I saw the other landmarks, like the fort, remains of the Mir Palace inside the fort, the Kacha Fort, the Homestead Hall, the Civil Hospital, the Hirabad Jail, Vidyalaya, the convent with its new constructed wall, the Nanikram Hall, the Shahi Bazaar, which is narrower now, the Das Garden, and the collapsed remains of the Nanikram School. They all stand as a reminder of a past which will not return, but which no one can take away as belonging to us, the Hindu Sindhis. A famous Sindhi singer in Pakistan sings today, Umar Desh mein jo visara na rukyo hai. It is surely difficult to forget one's land, is what she sings. I wonder if we would have still lived in Hyderabad since a partition would not have taken place, and I feel maybe yes. We would have made Hyderabad a home center like just today, Bombay and the other cities in India are. But what happened happened. Who is to argue? On my return to Bombay, I felt I was coming home. Bombay is home now. It was good to be absorbed amongst the Hindus, the Christians, the Zoroastrians, the Muslims, etc. Here, one is that much more enriched, living in a colorful combination of cultures. However, though Bombay is the branch of the tree on which I happily sit, Hyderabad in Pakistan is the roots. How can I forget that? Both are important, roots and branches to make a tree live and prosper, and a complete human being blossom. Note, I said human beings, not Sindhi, not Indian, and a human being belongs to humanity, and the essence of God shines in him just as brightly as in anybody else, no matter where he geographically comes from. But to return to my narrative of Professor Ram Panjwani, he was a professor in Jai Hind College, which was situated right next to where my mother and I lived in Bombay, as Mumbai was called during those days. Professor Ram Panjwani would often stop by for breakfast or for a cup of tea, and during that time he would talk of so many varied subjects that so aroused an interest in me. I would look at him starry eyed and imbibe his vast knowledge. Professor Dada Panjwani, as I used to call him. But the professor used to teach the Sindhi language. Once I asked him if I could attend sometimes. He said, sure, I would love to have someone in my class who is genuinely interested. At the time when I met Dada Ram Panjwani, questions were bubbling within me with an intensity that I could barely contain. Though Dada Ram Panjwani is no more, he will always be venerated amongst the Sindhis as one who strove to keep the Sindhi culture alive. I remember I sobbed when I heard of his passing on, which proves that it was not only respect that I had for him, but also a good amount of affection. Dada Ram Panjwani was recognized by the government of India and awarded a Padma Shri. Today, a road is also named after him, close to where he lived. His manner of living was humble, yet his association was aristocratic, and so was his bearing. He felt and behaved like a king. Obviously, his possessions were of a different kind. He would often been, life is a joy. He taught me that it's not how much we have, but how much we are able to learn from life that makes for happiness. He also taught me that everything that pertains to Hinduism has a scientific root attached to it. My first book, Hindu Customs and Beliefs, saw the light of day thanks to a lot of what Dada Panjwani taught me. In the foreword that he gave to my book, he stated that my book, though small, was a treasure house of knowledge and wisdom. Today, when I look back and realize the amount of luminaries that I met on the path who helped and loved me, and the place I was lucky enough to visit, I cannot but agree with Omkar, who says, and who himself is a professor. Yes, a blessed life includes travels, and in your case, even more so. The notes you sent me go very well with the spirit of the book, for they clarify your personal surroundings and background, and they provide a counterpoint to the strictly miraculous and shows that good and wise people that step into our lives are also a grace. So, having introduced you to Dada Ram Panjwani and having introduced you to my birthplace, I take your leave until next time. You take care and God bless. And if you enjoy my videos, do put a like, do make a comment, and do share and do subscribe. But until next time, you take care and God bless.